Hello, crafty friends. My name is Jessica, and welcome back to my channel. Today, I have a card for you inspired by this color combo that I found on Pinterest. We're going to be using some water reactive inks. This is the Positively Saturated line. And I went ahead and shopped my stash, and I found this rather older stamp set that I have yet to use. So I figured now is better than never. So we went ahead and grabbed the Delicate Floral stamp set from Simon Says Stamp. As I mentioned, we're going to be using the Positively Saturated ink line from Simon Says Stamp to watercolor with over these images. So I'm starting off with a Tim Holtz watercolor paper. I purchased the 8.5 by or the 8 by 10. It's the larger sheets of the watercolor paper from Tim Holtz. And I went ahead and cut it down to 5.5 by 4.25. And I'm just going to go ahead and lay all of these florals on here. I want to be able to emboss them, and I'm going to use all of them, or I went in putting more on here, not knowing exactly what the plan was. So I went in thinking I was going to over make the florals, and then I end up using them all. So we're just getting started by using Simon Says Stamp Clear Embossing ink, and we're inking it up, and then we're going to go ahead and do it twice just to ensure when I'm using a lot of stamps like this in my Misty, I want to make sure that I'm having the best image imprinted onto the paper. So I did go ahead and ink it up twice to ensure that I'm getting the most crisp lines and getting everything adhered appropriately. So we're going to go ahead and sprinkle on white embossing powder. This is mostly Simon Says Stamp. There might be some other companies in there, but it is mostly Simon. I do need to get some more. It's looking a little bit low. And like I said earlier, we're going to watercolor with these inks. So I'm using Peony, Grapefruit, Butter, and Rainbow Splash Ballet. Now you'll notice I'm not being careful when I'm laying this color down. I'm also ensuring that I'm going outside of the embossed image. And there was a reason for this. I want to be sure that when I'm cutting these out that it has that little layer around the edge. I don't like to cut right up to the edges of images. And so I wanted to ensure that they weren't white when I cut them out. And so that's why I went a little bit over with the color to offset that bright white that we have. And I'm also not paying attention to making sure that these are realistic at all. I'm really just going in with the colors that speak to me, just kind of mixing it up. You know, I did the peony and the grapefruit, or no, I did peony and ballet for that first floral. Now I'm going in with the grapefruit and the butter and just really having a good time, not really caring a lot about making sure that I'm hitting the right light source or anything like that. Just really having fun coloring. When you're using dye inks like this to paint, you have to ensure that they're water reactive. The original Simon Says Stamp line is not water reactive, and when you add water to that ink line, it peels up or essentially it balls up, and so it does not work with water. But these work beautifully. I love the colors that you still get. You can get that bright saturation like that peony color. You can still get that even with adding water to it. It all just depends on how much water you're adding, and the less water, the brighter the ink is going to look. I also did go in multiple layers on some of these to ensure that I was getting the brightest color and the deepest color on some of these florals. So it's really fun. Dye inks, you can do a lot of really great things with them. So I highly encourage that you play around if you have some water reactive dye inks. Use them as watercolors. We don't always have to have the fancy watercolor palettes that most people in this industry have. I do not. I own one that is not the fanciest, but you can get away with doing just this, just using your dye inks. So I highly encourage you to try something new with your inks if you have water reactive ones. I think this is my favorite floral shape in the whole entire line, this middle flower that I'm painting right there. This is the only one too that has added greenery except for the buds, which is a nice little touch. The other ones don't have the greenery, and so we had to add those by stamping all of the little greenery branches that you'll see. I really wanted to be sure that the florals were different, but that they all cohesively came together. And I think that this color palette did a really good job ensuring that they felt different, but very similar in their colors and tones, and also went back to the original image that we're kind of basing everything off of. So now I'm going in with the greenery. I started out with just Pearfection, and I wanted to have a little bit more color variation. So I added in Fairway and Sprout just to add some more depth. And I'm also bringing in that butter to bring in another layer of fun leaf colors. There's the Fairway right there. But I thought the yellow would be a nice touch to kind of round everything out. And I'm just going in, like I said, I'm not being super careful, definitely just laying color down as freely as I can, ensuring that I'm going over the embossed line so that when I go to trim these out, I have a colored layer around everything so that it's not white. This Tim Holtz watercolor paper is the brightest white I think I have in my supplies, and so I do tend to go towards that more than anything, although I didn't use it for the whiteness, but this is the one that I reach for the most. I enjoy stamping on the back of it. It is smooth. If you stamp on the front side, you're going to get all the texture, but the back is smooth, which makes it really nice. Another tip when you're watercoloring, you want to go over your images with a towel or a paper towel, and it'll get all of the ink off of your emboss. You can also hit your embossed images with your heat gun, and when you do that, sometimes it will make them brighter because you're reactivating that embossing powder, and so it can tend to eliminate any muddiness that might occur. Now you're gonna work through this process with me. I thought I wanted this peachy panel originally. I envisioned a peachy panel when I was making these cards, but I pivoted kind of the last minute, and I wanted to see what a white panel with black ink would look like. And I do apologize, I am out of camera here. So sorry for that, but all I'm doing is I'm making sure that I can line this image up, and so when I stamp it, it's getting the whole panel. But I pivoted and decided that I'm going to use Versaclair ink. This is a great ink if you're wanting to use for embossing powder, because you can throw a clear embossing powder over this black to get the added texture that embossing powder brings, and this ink stays wet long enough in order to do so. So I'm going to go ahead and heat set both panels. We're going to do the peachy one with the white because I'm thinking maybe it's still the one I'm going to go to, but I'm also going to do the white one with the black. And we're going to pick here in a few minutes which one's going to be the better one for the card. Doing a quick clean before we move into cutting out the images with fussy cutting. So there's our two panels. I'm definitely starting to lean towards the black and white one, and you'll see where we end up. But I'm going to go ahead and fussy cut. A tip for fussy cutting is move your paper, don't move your scissors. I'm moving them a little bit here, but if you're doing all the movement with your scissors, you're going to find that you're overworking your hand and you're not going to get as precise on the trimming, at least in my opinion. We're going to go ahead and cut one more out, and then we're going to use the magic of video editing to go ahead and have them all be cut out in a really fun fashion. I love the peony on this floral. It is so bright and vibrant, and then that added Ballet made it such a lovely color combo. So as you can see, I decided not to use that peachy panel. I was loving the black and white more, so I went ahead and trimmed this panel down to 4 by 5 1/4. I wanted to have a border, and we're going to pop this panel up. I love popping up a panel with just the slight trim down. And I also love using Altenews foam tape for this. The loft on this tape is perfect. It's not too thin. It's just the right amount of loft to give a good depth to the two panel and to the card base. So now we're going to go ahead and fiddle the best part of the video, at least in my opinion, and we're going to figure out where we're going to put all of our imagery. I do end up using it all. So we're going to go ahead and figure out where we want to put everything, and then we'll go ahead and get it glued. Remember the image I talked about being my favorite, the one that had the greenery? That's the one I'm going to pop up and place a lot of the focus on. Now here I'm struggling with my glue. I had to off camera do some little surgery is what I like to call it, and there was a chunk of glue inside of the nozzle that kept clogging it no matter how many times I tried to unclog it. So I went ahead and got that all cleaned out. And now we have our working glue bottle. This is the Craft Tacky glue from Simon Says Stamp. I like this glue. It's a little bit thicker, especially with this watercolor cardstock. It's a great adhesive to ensure that we're getting the best results for when we're adhering it to a card. So I went ahead and cut some of the florals down, and we're just tucking them in, ensuring that there's a little bit of greenery on every single floral. And then, like I said, we're going to pop up the one that I loved the most, just to give it a little more emphasis on that one. I went ahead and used Simon Says Stamp foam squares to pop them up. These are the loftier ones. And now we're just going in and tucking and placing and fiddling all the greenery to ensure that this card feels complete and cohesive. I do have all of the products that I've used today listed below in the description box. Be sure to expand it to see all of that. I also do use affiliate links, and what that means is if you click on one of my links and shop with me, I do get a small commission based on your purchase. This purchase is not passed on to you. This is a marketing tool that the company uses, and that money is provided to me outside of pushing it to you. So now we're just adding the last little bit of greenery to make sure that we have a full and fabulous card to show off here. And I'm making sure that I am creating balance as well as making the card look full and lush. I like a lot of florals. I don't know if you've noticed that. If you've been here for a while, you might know that, but if you're new, welcome. I tend to drift towards florals. So I'm really happy with the way that turned out. I love the different colors that we achieved using those reactive dye inks from Simon Says Stamp. And now we're going to go ahead and pick a sentiment, and we're going to go ahead and heat emboss it and get it added to the panel. I went really simple, and we're just going to use that Versafine Clair and some clear embossing powder to finish off the sentiment. This one says, "Love everything about you." This stamp set is still available. I believe there were probably dies with it at one point, but there are no longer dies. But like I said, I fussy cut everything out. It didn't take very long. It was very easy to do. So now we're going to trim the sentiment out. I like to have a little bit more of an organic sentiment. So that what I mean by that is it's soft corners, soft edges. It's not square, but it's more hugging the text and makes it feel a little bit more organic, I guess. So we're going to add some foam tape and get it popped up. And then we're going to finish the card off by adding some rainbow splash jewels. And you'll watch me lose 2 of them during the process. Let's see if you'll notice. But we're going to go ahead and just add it. And like I said, we're going to add some clear rainbow splash jewels. The nice thing about the rainbow splash adhesive jewels is that they already have the adhesive on them. So I'm going to use the ones that are clear, but as you can see, I'm using my tweezers, and 2 of them end up magically launching into the great craft unknown, and I have no idea where they went. So I don't know what was my struggle, but I ended up finally getting 3 of them added just for a little extra. I did make the decision to leave everything hanging off the edge. I can put it in a larger envelope to mail it or cut it down prior to mailing. But that's the card for today. I just want to say thank you for joining me and take care.